You get to see it this way. So welcome to our lab. I have the great honor of doing this, and it's all because of Jesse and Kelly bringing me into the loop. So I'm really excited about being here tonight with you. And we're going to create 3 different things, which you took home ingredients for in your bags yesterday. So we're going to start out with the carrot fries, and then we will do a salad with the salad dressing, and then we'll go on to the carrot cake for the finale. So without further any stalling anything, so let's talk about, what do we know about carrots? Well, carrots are good for us, right? And we have, thanks to Hawaii Go Farms, we have their freshest carrots. These are probably the freshest that you might come across, unless you go to a farmer's market. But these are very fresh, and you each have a bundle of them. So we're gonna cut the tops off in a minute. But basically, thanks to Go Hawaii Farms for the carrots. So before we start cutting carrots, you have a dollop of coconut oil. Now, some of you might live in an area where it's already thinned and liquefied, but because we're in a cool environment, it's solid. So I'm going to put this in the oven for a minute to, oh yeah, it should be in a little, little clear or opaque container with a C on top. And you'll be able to see that it is a small tablespoon of coconut oil. So basically it's solid right now, but we'll put it in the oven for a minute and liquefy that. And while we're doing that, I'm going to show you how we can cut up some of the carrots. So again, these are really great and fresh. And when we talk about carrots, we have to think about what are they? So they are nutritionally valuable. And each one of them is, of course, loaded with vitamin A and beta-carotene. So we have some good benefits. Carrots, I always encourage people to wash them. You don't have to peel them, as long as you wash them and get all you can scrub as much of the surface brown off, but you don't have to peel them. So just make sure you get them washed, and then we'll take off the tops. For every, so each carrot has roughly, or 1 cup of chopped carrots has about 52 calories. It has 2.8 grams of fat. And some of that comes from total fat and some comes from saturated fat. But the nice thing is there's no trans fats because it's not processed. So we have a great source of nutrients without the fat. They also do have a little bit of sodium, not much in the way of sugars, but they do have some carbohydrates. So we have about 12 grams of carbohydrates. And again, this is for a whole cup of chopped carrots. And they have lots of vitamin A. So we get 428% of our need from carrots from 1 cup. Now the fun fact is, or it could be fun if you want it to be, but if you wanted to actually get that beta carotene to work and turn orange for a period of time, you could actually consume 20 to 50 milligrams of beta carotene foods in a day. And in a few weeks, you'll have an orange tint, just like your carrots. So about 1 medium carrot, and these are on the small side, but if you think about 1 medium carrot has about 4 milligrams of beta carotene. So if you had 10 carrots in a day, over a period of a few weeks, you're going to have the orange tint of a carrot. So Halloween next year, you can have that option to enjoy the carrot tint. So right now we're cut the tops off. So you can, I know people have used the carrot tops, so we're not going to cook them up today, but you're welcome to use them if you'd like. And if you want to stack them all, these are really nice and soft to get through. And you can peel off the edges. So we're going to make these into the fries. So we're going to cut edges off, ends, and then tops. All right, so some other fun facts is that carrots come in, I think it was 5 colors. Does anybody know what the colors are? So in my classes, I always ask a million questions. So I'll ask you guys as many questions as you might ask me. So what are my colors? What are the colors that we can find in carrots? And Jesse can give me a hint if anybody gets all my colors. So we don't just have orange anymore. Even though in the very beginning, white was your color of the very beginnings of carrots. They actually began in Pakistan, or I'm sorry, Afghanistan. That's where our first identification of carrots is coming from. They are, again, nutrient dense. So we have lots of things that come off of them. So with your cuts, one of the big things about French fries from any kind of vegetable is to almost get similar sizes. So no matter what size you want to cut your fry, just try and get a close size. And we're going to put them into that pan as soon as we take that out of the oven. So get them as close of size, and that way they will actually cook fairly even versus some will cook faster than others. So get them in about the same width and size. Length is okay either way, but thickness is where you want to concentrate. All right, Jesse, did we get any answers on our colors? Great. So there's two more. There's actually black and red. So the beta, of course, your colors, you're going to get different strengths of beta-carotene, alpha and beta-carotene. And each one of those is going to vary just a bit with the colors. But the orange, of course, has the most concentrated beta-carotene. When you think about beta-carotene as a general knowledge factor, is that vitamin A, again, and beta-carotene are in the family, right? It's a precursor to vitamin A. So in our globe, our worldwide issues, we have a lot of people that have blindness related to a vitamin A deficiency. So if we could get these guys to eat carrots, we would, or any other vitamin A fortified food, then we would have less issues. Right now, they look at about 350,000 children in the world have vitamin A deficiency. So it's pretty prevalent. Not so much in the United States because we have the opportunity to get supplementation and everything else. All right. So once we get through our cutting, some of you might be cutting with me. You could also do, instead of sticks, you could do coins. You could do it on the diagonal. So there's a lot of ways to cut carrots. But this will give us the stick version. All right. Oops. Safety-wise, just always try and have your hands above your knife. We always want to send people home in the best way that they come home, if not better. So you don't want to have a cut. And carrots tend to roll, so just holding on to the top versus the bottom is another way to keep yourself and fingers safe. All right, so now we have our sliced carrots. Let me rinse out my bowl. We'll get our, oops. All right, so our coconut oil is liquefied. It's completely liquid. Now what we're going to do is we are going to put our carrots into the oil. And you all went home with a round pan like this. So this is what you can use for roasting your carrots. The nice thing is when you roast carrots, they actually sweeten up because that sugar starts to caramelize. So we actually get them, make them sweeter. The other thing that you have at home is a salt and pepper combination. So you can salt and pepper them with that mixture. And of course, if you want to add a little bit more, you're welcome to do that. And then the final step is our rosemary. So make sure you wash everything, even the rosemary. Okay, so we're gonna wash it. And one of the things that you can do to get it off of the stem is to go backwards on the, backwards on that stem. And we want about 1 teaspoon. Or if you didn't have fresh, then you could use dried. All right. So nice, easy way to chop it is take your knife and go above it and just chop until your desired texture. So it's based on what you want to do. You make it as thin and as fine as you'd like. Okay, and then we'll toss it across the top of our carrots. And so we're going to mix these guys and mix the oil and trying to kind of combine. What you're trying to really do is to coat them and get them coated in that coconut oil so that they get a little bit on the crispy side. Yes, I think you're going to have a little bit of a jam-packed container. However, that's fine. You can still get that, that quality that we're looking for when you're done. So in ideal world, we could thin these out so that they were 100% single lined. So if you want to do one step and come back and do another round, you could do it that way too. Use half your coconut oil for the first round. All right, so now we're gonna put these into the oven to roast. Okay, so roasted carrots. And we will time that for, we're gonna check them at 15 minutes. Hi. Gotcha. Okay, so we will put those in and we're gonna check them in 5 minutes or 15 minutes, sorry. So shout out to Dean Comerford and Anya for joining us. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much for being a part of our cooking show. First one of the adventures that we have. So thanks for coming out and supporting us and supporting the CTAHR side. So we appreciate that. All right. Any questions on the cooked carrots? So those are in the oven and we'll get those and check them in 15 minutes. So Jesse, will you do a 15-minute timer for me? All right. Now we'll go on to our salad. So we have some salad greens. You have a mix of spring mix. This is actually romaine, and I wanted to just bring out and show you on this romaine lettuce that we have, it has these rust spots. Now the rust spots you might see on iceberg lettuce, you might see it on romaine. These are not, it's not toxic. You can eat this. It's just the color that changes. So you don't have as, they're not as bright and as pretty, but you can still eat the pieces that have the rust. It's not going to create a problem. So if you want to toss that into a bowl. Oven temperature is 425. So it's pretty hot. And if you're roasting even potatoes or root vegetables, usually it's 425. And it usually takes anywhere from a half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on the thickness of your cut. Again, if you get that consistent cut, you're going to have a better cook time overall so that one's not done before the others. So that's where the 425 comes in. So that's a typical roasting temperature. Good question. All right. You also went home with these wonderful little mini cucumbers and grape tomatoes. So I recommend and I suggest that you wash these too. We didn't wash them before we bagged them, so make sure you wash those in water, colander, however you want to rinse them off. Really everything in today's world we need to wash because of, for one, our rat lungworm disease that we have on the Big Island that we could, you know, see somewhere in the state, but also just in general, it goes for washing. One thing on carrots. So when we talk about carrots, some people think about baby carrots. Baby carrots are actually, do we grow baby carrots or do we get them, are they processed? So that would be my question out to all of you is, do we grow baby carrots? And that'll be a Jessie answer that she can tell me if somebody gets that one. Do we grow baby carrots? Then I'm gonna cut my cucumber, and you can do it in a variety of ways. You can do coins. This is considered like on the bias, so you have some nice sizes, or you can do strips. You can do whatever your choice is. I kind of like the bias because you actually get a little bit more variation of sizes. Awesome. No, we don't grow baby carrots. Baby carrots come from large carrots that didn't make the grade to be sold in stores. So they are more of your cull type carrots. And there are machines that they get processed through. So they go through on a conveyor belt and they get stripped and they get sized into baby carrots. They're ground down into that beautiful shape that you get. And of course, there's multiple shapes and sizes that you can buy of baby carrots. So they are not grown that way. They come from that machine. All right, so we're gonna add our cucumbers and then we got tomatoes. So you can leave your tomatoes whole or you can cut them in half or quarters, however you wanna do it, or you can do them as rounds. Again, I think when you have different shapes in your salads, it really makes it more eye appealing for color and visual. Remember, 90% of your dishes are all visual, especially on the fruits and vegetable side. So colors. If you talk about the color of the rainbow, that's where we want to get as many colors as we can. So again, I'm just doing some extra tomatoes. And now we even have all those, fun heirloom tomatoes and lots of colors. We have little gold tomatoes and you can get a multitude of tomatoes. All right, there we go. Now we can also add, I have some extra shredded carrots. So if you left off a few of your carrots from your salad, from your cake, you could add some extra carrots. So I have a few extra. All right, so that's your base salad. So we'll go from that and make a dressing. And in your packets, you have olive oil. I gotta check so olive oil. You have a lemon. You have celery seeds. And you have honey. So each one of these is your ingredient. And I will rinse off let's trade out cutting boards. With your lemon, you should have enough juice with just the one. But and again, wash your lemon. Can you give me a quarter cup? A quarter cup measure. If you want to make these, if you've got a really firm lemon, there's a couple ways you can do softening it. You can either put it in the microwave for about 10 seconds, or you can roll it up against the counter and make it, soften it that way. The one thing about if you put it in the microwave, it tends to bring those essential oils because the essential oils are in the skin, and even rolling it does that, is it will bring those oils out and it gets a little more slippery. So whatever is easiest for you as far as to be able to bring that juice up. So if you have seeds in here, one of the ways that you can avoid seeds is to squeeze it into a strainer if you want, or you can actually pick out the seeds as you go. So it really depends on what you want to do. And that's going to be a really tight. It'll also, if you don't want the pulp in there, you'll also do that. And of course, if you've got one of those fun little gadgets that squeezes really well, that will be also really nice. And you can actually, you know, dig a spoon into it if you need that extra lemon. That guys. So hopefully 1 lemon should get you right about a 1/4 cup. I'm going to cut this guy in half. That also can help you squeeze so that you're not squeezing really good. The challenge with, if you've got little cuts on your hand or dry spots, you're going to feel it with your lemon. It's citrus, right? So if we want to dig into that with a spoon, we might be able to sacrifice and get a little more out of there so we can squeeze it. All right, now let's do this one again. Oops, getting close to that 1/2 cup or 1/4 cup. And again, it might be easier if you guys squeeze it over a larger surface area than a 1/4 cup, because your 1/4 cup, you might be dripping off to the side. So we're a little bit short, but that's okay. All right, so now you have a 1/4 cup and no seeds. So that's good. Now I gotta wash my hands off really quick. Dry hands creates cracks. All right, then we're gonna put this into a container that you can mix all of this together. So you're going to take your olive oil. You can open that up. That's perfect. Thanks. So olive oil. If you have a sealed type of container that you can stir it and or shake it, even better. But we can actually stir it up pretty well with a fork. The honey. I read because I'm always challenged with measurements, and one of the things with honey is it sticks to your container, right? I read somewhere that you can actually put a little bit of oil in your container. However, my thought is you're going to get some of that oil in with your honey. So I guess it would depend on if your oil is for your dressing. But if you want just straight honey, you don't necessarily want that oil taste. So get as much out as you can with a spoon. And then your celery seeds, we'll add those in. All right. And we're going to mix this guy up now. For my cooking people, is this an emulsion that's temporary or a permanent emulsion? And I'll ask Jessie for a heads up when she's got some answers. So is it a temporary or a permanent? And it's an emulsion because we have a liquid and we have a fat, and those two don't like to play in the sandbox very well. They don't like to stay together. So would this be a temporary or a permanent emulsion? Yay, it is temporary, because if I let it go, if I let it sit on the side, it will turn into layers again. But right now you'll see that it's, we've mixed it so it's nicely mixed up and not separate. So again, if you have a shaking container, you can do that as well. All right, so when you are done with your dressing, couple things, you can do it and you can put it on top of your entire salad if you want. At this point, you could leave it to your guests to put on if they want. The one thing you have to remember is if you do put it on your salad, this will be not the best tomorrow because this is pulling, the lettuce and everything is pulling in. So you've got some ability that you're absorbing it into the lettuce cells, and they're going to start breaking. So it will start making those soft, as well as the cucumbers and tomatoes. So it's up to you if you want to mix it and put it all together. One thing about a salad dressing compared to like a marinade is a salad dressing is not meant to puddle on your plate. So really, when you are at a restaurant, you can gauge how well they put your salad together. You can judge a restaurant by if they have a salad that has this giant puddle of dressing on the bottom, that you actually are getting a salad with way too much dressing. Now, if you put it on yourself, that's your own That's your own doing. But if it's coming from the back of the restaurant and it's coming out to you and there's a big puddle, then they just put too much on. Compared to like a marinade where it's sitting in there and it wants to pull up the flavors, but then it's not necessarily served with the marinade. So I will keep these separate and we can check back and see how that separates if we want to later. But nice, you should have a nice blended salad dressing. Okay. All right. So we have about, I'd say about 3 minutes left on our carrots. So we can check in on those and we're going to actually turn them. What I can show you a couple things or give you a couple more back of the house type of things is that does anybody know what the pigment is in a carrot? There's pigments in vegetables and this pigment is very sturdy. So if I cook a carrot in an acid base, an acid environment, I can actually hang on to that color really well. It doesn't break down like some of our other products. Same with the alkaline. If I put it in an alkaline base, I'll change the texture a bit, but I'm not gonna lose as much color as if I do broccoli. So an example is vinegar or baking soda. So one being opposites, right? And so if you cook broccoli in baking soda, yes, I should have wrote that down. You'll get baking soda, yes. You'll get a mushy broccoli, but you'll get it really pretty color. But that's a toss-up. Do you want it mushy or do you want it colorful? So with carrots, they are really good and strong with their color. Sure.
Eggs for the carrot cake, should they be room temperature?
Not necessarily. You are okay to keep them in the fridge. We had them out. That's a good question. Eggs at room temperature are really good for meringues, but as far as whipping up the whites, but as far as like making and baking, not necessarily needing to keep them at room temperature. It's a good question. So did we get a pigment color answer? So yeah, carotene is your yes, carotenoids. So it's actually the carotenoids is definitely part of your coloring, but it's also anthocyanin or anthocyanin. Sorry, anthocyanin. So what the color is anthocyanin, and of course the beta-carotene is also very prevalent in orange foods. And my oven is probably on not hot enough. But we're going to go for a roasted appearance. So we're still cooking, guys. We're going to put this one back in the oven. Trying to get that is not hot. Okay. Next, we're going to do a cake. All right. So we can switch this out. Let's do another 15 minutes. I'm concerned my oven is not hot. So we'll give it a shot. I have a backup to show you of what it would look like if it came out of the oven. So that we have magic ovens in here. That's a big help. Okay, cake. With your cake, carrot cake. So carrot cake you can do in a big bowl, however you want to do that. I do have some trivia of carrot cakes, and this is kind of fun trivia. How long do you think we've had carrot cake recipes? That's a question. That's a good question for a lot of people. How long have we had a carrot cake recipe in the US? So I'll wait and see if anybody can figure that out. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of when George Washington was served the first cake in a setting in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan. So tomorrow, November 25, was the day that George Washington was served the first carrot cake. In a cookbook in the 1970s, there was 3 ladies that put it together, and it's the 1975 13 Colonies cookbook. And that recipe showed up with a little bit of variation in that cookbook. So some trivia there. The cream cheese frosting didn't make wide news until 1960s. So we actually didn't do a cream frosting until about the 1960s. And of course, now we think of carrot cake, you got to have the cream cheese frosting. So it's kind of simultaneous that those two go together, right? And of course, that's the expected or that anticipated, you know, what's so good about carrot cake now. So that's a little bit of trivia. So if anybody can find this November 25 date, it's kind of fun to hear about how old carrot cakes have been around. So little trivia for you. Okay, so what we're gonna do is mix the oil. So you should have a container of vegetable oil, and you'll mix that and put that into your bowl. So you can dump it right into the bowl. You don't have to worry about shredding your carrots. And I did not peel your carrots that you got shredded. However, before you do your little baggie and before you empty it into your bowl, there might be some water in there. And the whole purpose of that is to keep them from turning brown. So the fresher your carrots are, the less brown they will turn. Yours were very fresh, so you shouldn't have as much browning that I have with these. Even with water, you can have that browning. So if you can, squeeze that water out of your bag before you dump it into your bowl. But you can add your carrots. And you can add your sugar. Okay, so a cup of sugar. And you can add, what else do I need to add to my, my eggs. Okay, so eggs. Here's what I always tell students is that, can you get me another bowl? Is to don't crack your eggs over your ingredients that you're gonna be mixing it into. And the reason is if you accidentally, one, have a shell, or two, it's rotten, then you would know ahead of time if it's bad. So crack them over something separate, and then you can mix them a little bit and put them into your bowl. So rather than having them, you can figure out if they're bad or not. Just a fork, just to stir it up. So again, they don't have to be room temperature. I had them out for convenience, but they don't have to be room temperature. And it's okay, of course, if they break. And you can mix them up a little bit. And then of course, we're gonna mix them into the bowl. All right, so we'll add them into our bowl. I have another question for you. What size eggs are most recipes written for? What size of the, what size eggs? We have probably like 6 different size eggs, peewees all the way up to jumbos. So how do you know what size your eggs should be when you buy them at the store for recipes? Does anybody have an answer to that one? So we're gonna just mix this together, blend it up. Some of the first carrot cakes actually started as carrot pudding, and the carrots, because sugar was really expensive back in, they even dig it all the way back into medieval time, that carrots were so were cheap and sugar was expensive. So that was their sweetening of the carrot cake or the carrot pudding. That's how carrot cakes first started, and was the pudding style. So you can mix that up and let it sit on the side, and then we'll get another bowl, and we're going to mix your flour mixture. So you have one that says cake dry. This has your cinnamon. It has your baking soda. It has your baking powder, and it has your salt. Now, a couple ways, if you don't have a strainer, you can do a couple of ways of mixing this all together. And that is to mix it in the bag and get it all blended well together. What you, yes, a large egg is what you're looking for. So that's what most recipes were designed for, is the large egg. So now we have that mixed up. If you had a strainer, you could put it through a strainer, and that would allow you to do a couple things. It keeps it so it's mixed really well, and that you don't have separate ingredients. So you don't want to have baking soda, baking powder taste in your carrot cake or in your banana bread or whatever it is. So you just want to mix them up and let it go through the sifter. It doesn't necessarily have to be sifted flour. Most recipes are assuming that you're going to sift your flour. However, with cakes like this, it's not as critical as something lighter like a pastry, then we would definitely look at sifting our flour. But this just mixes your ingredients really nicely. So now you have a dry ingredient mix and you have your wet ingredient mix. And you can combine those two together. You stir this guy up a little bit more. Your sugar is starting to dissolve along with the carrots. So that will help your combination. Another kind of a fun trait of cooking is baking powder has a leavening, so it helps things rise, and so does baking soda, right? So the two of them are in here, and people ask, well, why do you have both? Sometimes baking soda doesn't go far enough, so the baking powder takes up that ability for you to get that rise. So when you have baking powder, it's generally double acting baking powder. And that is started when I put it in here liquid. When the liquid hits it, that's the beginning of the leavening. And when I put it in the oven, the heat is the second part. So that's why they call it double acting baking powder. So when you go to the store and you're looking for baking powder, it's not, most of it that you find is that double acting. And that's okay. That's what you're going to look for. And that just means that it's going to rise when you first liquefy it. And then also when you are heating it. So we're going to mix this guy up. If you over mix, I always tell everybody, try not to over manipulate flour. And does anybody know what happens when you get over manipulated flour? What are we creating when we wet that flour? What are we creating? That'd be a Jessie question. She can come back to me, but you can try to just get it so it's nice and consistent texture, but don't over mix it. Get your stuff blended well, but don't keep going. You don't have to keep rolling. Yes, so if we make more gluten, then we're gonna make it kind of, it will look very pasty, and it also will have what we call tunnels. So in their carrot cake, you'll have tunnels going throughout your carrot cake. So we can reduce that by not overbeating it. To get your pan ready, we sent you home with this, and we did not send you home with a bunch of shortening. So if you have butter, margarine, oil, whatever you want to use, you can use Crisco, and you can use the end of a butter packet. So just get your Crisco in all those little nooks and crannies in order to make sure that it doesn't get stuck in those areas. And you don't have to use a lot. You don't necessarily want to see a whole bunch of Crisco in your pan. So you want to get it enough that it's coated, but not so you're seeing all white. And that's the same if you use butter or margarine. Any kind of margarine, any kind of butter will help. The other thing too that you can do is cake or put flour in there. So you can do a dusting of flour. Will you get me just a little bit of flour? And what we'll do is we're just going to dust it, and I'll show you how to make sure you get enough. And so you just want to coat your pan so that you can kind of see the grease in there and get the edges. Because what you want to see when you're done is you want your cake to pop out without having to fight it too much. Okay, so you're going to have a little bit of dusting of flour. All right, so start with a little bit, go on the edges, and you can shake it around. So it's going to look kind of like that when you're shaking it around, and it's okay to have excess in there. Tap it around. You're trying to catch all your edges, okay? And then you can tap it out. And so now you have this is a prepared pan. So with every cake, and most recipes, most baking recipes tell you to prepare your pans. This would be one way to prepare it, but you can actually just do the Crisco or just do a butter or a margarine wipe as well. Okay, so then you're ready for your cake. So take your mixture and we're going to get this into the pan. So you don't have to have a fancy mixer to do this. You can do it right from a bowl and a whisk or a spoon, whatever is easiest for you. Okay, and get that as best as you can inside the pan. And you'll have it's about 3/4 of the pan full. So we're gonna wait and check our oven temperature before we put that in there. Couple other, did anybody get the trivia on how long it's been since we've had a carrot cake in the US? November 25, what year? Did anybody catch that or find it? So 1783. Did somebody catch it? 1783. So 237 years ago, tomorrow was the first day that carrot cake was served in the United States to a president of George Washington. So kind of a fun, trivial thing. And another fun fact is the largest carrot. Does anybody have an idea what the largest carrot grown ever was? It's probably got a world record somewhere. It's actually not in the United States. The person that grew it was in the UK. But we have an amazing, astounding size of carrot. And I don't know if anybody would guess this. So I'll let you guess, but then I'll give it to you in a second because it's a huge carrot compared to what we would normally expect in a carrot. Usually they're what? Depending on how big, maybe a foot, maybe, if we get a good carrot. And they could be as big as, they could be as 3 inches in diameter as some of the big ones. And so that's common. And if you go to a food service location to buy carrots like Chef's Zone, or you might see them even in grocery stores, they're giant. So this one was the giant, beyond giant. Did somebody get it?
No, we got a 6-foot guess.
Somebody has a 6-foot guess. Okay, it's bigger.
55 pounds.
Ooh, that's a big one. So even bigger than 6 feet though was the record. And it was from September 23rd of 2016. So this person was in the UK. He grew it. His name is John Atherton, and he grew a 20-foot, 5.86 inch carrot. So 20 foot, 5.86 inches in a carrot. That's a giant carrot. That would give you plenty of carrot salad and carrot cake and carrot fries. So you can create a bunch of different carrot recipes from just one carrot. So that is some deep soil. That is deep all the way. Yeah. So any thoughts on how long it takes carrots to grow? I mean, we saw our nice, you have some fresh carrots. Those are the freshest. How long does it take them to grow from a seed? That's a question for you. You can take the tops. So this is one thing you can do with the tops. Not like onions, where if we put a green onion and we put the stem of the green onion into, where don't cut it all the way off, just cut the greens and leave some of the white and put it back in the soil, we can grow green onions again. Can't do that with carrots. However, you could get seeds if you put this in soil. And then if it's not a hybrid, then you could turn around and produce carrots from the seeds. So it really depends on the product that you start with, but you can kind of do creation of seeds from that. So that's how carrot seeds, and carrot seeds are actually very small. So you can do a lot of carrot seeds in a small area. Of course, you need the depth to be able to create that nice long carrot. And of course, 20 feet of carrot would have been really long for this guy to create. And that might've been my timer for our baked carrot. So let's see if our oven is functioning with me. And I still think it's really not very hot. So we're kind of getting a little bit on the, we've kind of gotten drier, but we're not quite getting that roasted look. So we want to see a roasted, brighter orange, more roast color. So I have now these have gotten soft. So yes, they are roasted still, but they've gotten a little bit softer. So you can kind of see where the edges have darkened up. And what's causing that darkness is the sugars are becoming brown. So it's the Maillard reaction that is creating the browning on carrots. So all of your root vegetables, you can roast like this and create that nice flavor profile for a vegetable. So that is, you're shooting for something like that, versus this one is just not quite getting my temperature, they're still pretty hard. So keep them going if you have temperature issues, but you can keep trying them, okay? All right, so there's your 2 carrots. Carrot cake. So we had our magic oven. And now here is a finished version of carrot cake. So we are going to use a, oops, I'm going to use this white platter. So this is going to be our, what I'm going to put the carrot cake on. So what you're hoping for is to have your carrot cake come out really well and really easy. You might want to run a knife or a flat edged surface around the edges in order to kind of loosen that up. Sure. That's a good question. So you can kind of see how the top has gotten a little bit cracked. I used a toothpick to check it, but you can also kind of, this one is cooled off already. You'll kind of know if you can move it in the oven and it's still jiggling on the top, you'll definitely know it's not done. A toothpick works really well. If a toothpick goes in and it comes out clean, then it's cooked. So it should be done at that point. If you go too far, if you cook it beyond the doneness, it just gets drier. So this is a really nice moist cake. And I wanted to bring in, if a lot of people are trying to do low fat options today. So how could I make a carrot cake low fat? I can actually substitute applesauce in place of oil. So you can actually do a 1-to-1 substitution of unsweetened applesauce in place of oil and create almost the same results. In fact, I've had classes do it and they actually thought that the applesauce cake was better than the oil cake. So it's preference, but remember your fats have a purpose and fats have a purpose to give moisture. So the applesauce might make it a little drier, little sweeter, even though it's unsweetened. And it also is going to increase your sugar. So carbohydrate count will go up because applesauce is a carbohydrate. So those are the things you can consider and weigh out what you want to do. So to get it out of your pan, you might need to tap it. And I'm going to come over here and come back onto my area where we're going to put this out. So our hope is that it's going to come out. So you should come out with a clean carrot cake. So that is an unfrosted carrot cake. And you can stop there. You don't have to go any further. I did want to share with you, some people have never seen a bundt pan. This is a bundt pan. They actually have different shapes, different designs on these. So you can get any kind you want, but this is a bundt pan. Our recipe is a half version of what is needed for a bundt pan. So if you want to use a bundt pan, you just need to double your recipe. And that would get you a full, it would cover up to, like about 2/3 of the way up, and then it will make a nice outcome. Remember to grease this guy really well because this one has so many nooks and crannies. You want it to be able to dump over and to drop out nicely like our loaf pan did, so that you don't lose some of your fun designs in this. And they actually have some ones that look like castles. And so you can come up with some really fun designs on your carrot cake. Yes. Oh, sure. I'd probably need to go and look at because remember, almond flour doesn't have the gluten that your all-purpose flour has. So you may have a little bit of a variation and you might have to add a few other ingredients. I would, if somebody has that question, I can get back to you specifically in regards to that, because a lot of people are doing gluten-free products, but there's a purpose for gluten, and that's to help with some of the texture and some of the content of it. So if anybody does need a little more help with that, I can definitely reach back out to you and give you a little bit more information on that. So that's a great question, because a lot of people are looking at alternative flours. Icing. You have an icing recipe. You don't have the ingredients yet, but you can go out and purchase the ingredients for that. So basically this is a cream cheese and powdered sugar and vanilla and butter. So it has all of the ingredients in there, and you're going to either one, you could mix it in a mixer, or you can try and do it with a whisk. It's going to be a little tougher with a whisk to get to the consistency. Just keep mashing it. The other thing too is the more room temperature your butter and your cream cheese is, the easier it will be to blend it up. So when you're ready to frost, and this is a double recipe compared to my cake, so it looks like a lot, but what we can do is put, you start with your, put an edge on, or put an amount on, and then just spread it as thin or as thick as you want. It's completely up to you. But again, I have a double recipe, so it's going to be a decent amount here. Sometimes with cakes that are made in bakeries, the way they get a perfectly flat top is to invert the cake and then frost it upside down. So if you ever get a beautifully flat cake, it's more than likely has been flipped upside down, because of the fact that your bottom is going to be the flattest portion. So the top could have that nice peak to it, and that's what people don't necessarily want to see on a cake. So they'll do an upside down version. The other thing too is crumbs. So some people really struggle with getting the crumbs to come back out into the cake. So I think it's really about getting the right amount on first and not trying to over manipulate your edges too much, because the crumbs will come out in the frosting. And then we'll turn it on the side. So get that initial coating. And you can swirl it and you can decorate it however you want to create that. You might actually even get I have a little knife. Oh, that'll work even better. To get that little bit, you can see some of my crumbs are coming out to the side, but we're going to put the nuts on it and it won't show. So you have a masking effect so that you don't have that crumb worry. So again, whatever your thickness, you can decide and you can decorate it however you want. Of course, some people like to put even a shape of a carrot. You could take a little bit of this frosting and keep it to the side and put some red and yellow, because those two complementary colors will create, or two primary colors will create that complementary orange. And you can make an orange carrot out of your leftover mix. And then we're going to put our pecans or nuts across the top. And you can even do it if you want to. One of the nice things you can do with pecans or any kind of nut, it makes them even, the flavor come out even more, is to toast them. So you can layer this in a single cookie sheet or on aluminum, or you could even do it in a pan, and to toast the nuts that you choose to put on top of anything will always make that flavor come out a little bit more. And there you have a carrot cake ready for consumption. Okay. The other thing, go back to our dressing so you can kind of see how it's separated. So we can just always mix it back up and start fresh. Okay. So that's always ready for you to blend up. All right. I sure can do that. All right, so we're going to look and see what it looks like inside. We've got the outside that looks so pretty, but now let's see what it looks like inside. A bigger knife is always better, but you can use whatever knife you have. And we're going to go from, this actually is, I think one of these is 8 servings. So you can see we have, oops. And getting it off the pan is not going to be the easiest. We'll put our extra frosting on the side. So that's the end piece. And again, this is kind of like a carrot loaf style, but you can see the inside is nicely textured, and you can see your carrots still. So some fun things to think about. So any other questions? we didn't peel carrots, but I just want to give you a trick. Oops, forget that one. each of your peelers, and usually peelers have two sides. So they have a blade on one side and they have a blade on the other. The whole purpose of that is so that you can actually go, instead of having to just constantly go down on a carrot and peel it, you actually can go up and down and you don't have to even lift your peeler off of your carrot. So it saves you a little bit of time. The other things that are kind of fun out there now is all these different cuts. So instead of having to julienne your carrots, you can get these peelers now, and you can find these at Walmart or you can find them anywhere. And they have different textures. So you can actually run it across the top. In fact, I could probably salvage one of these guys and cut it across the top and show you the side. So this carrot slicer will, oops, my carrots did get a little bit soft. So this will actually create like a julienne style shredded carrot. So you have, I'm not going to be able to cut much further because it's so small, but you can actually get this texture without having to do it by a knife, which is another fun thing. Same with this one too. And this one actually is for papayas. So if you have green papaya, you can do green papaya salad that way. So you don't have to worry about cutting it or scoring your papayas that way. So carrots, same thing. Potatoes too, if you wanted to julienne carrots for a salad or anything else, beets, anything like that, you can do the shredded rather than having to cut them individually. Okay.
Lara,
Yes.
Michelle would like to know if there's a way to make powdered sugar at home.
Ooh, there is. If you have granulated sugar and you put it in the blender, you'll blend it up. I have to go back and think about how long it's going to take, but blend it up and add just a little bit of cornstarch. In our powdered sugar that we buy at the store, it actually has cornstarch in it. Believe it or not, it's made with cornstarch. So that's to keep it that fluffy, powdery consistency. So if you get to your granulated sugar where the consistency is still, it's almost there after you put it in a blender, you can put a little bit of cornstarch in and it should still powder up even better. So that way you can do it at home through granulated sugar and not have to buy powdered sugar. Good question. Any others?
How about if anybody wants to jump on, if they want to jump on, they can show us what they
Sure.
they made it.
Yes. Did anybody cook any of these fun things today? That's always the fun thing to see. I can think of anything. Let me see if I have any other fun. Oh, before Jesse's picking that up, microwave cooking. So when we talk about cooking carrots, they're loaded again with nutrients. So if we are cooking them in a source of water, which if you think about carrots, if you're not roasting them, you're boiling them. So if you're going to boil carrots, you're going to pull some of those water soluble nutrients out. Specifically, vitamin C is a big one that we lose. But you also can reduce that by cooking them in the microwave, small amount of water or steamer. You can reduce the losses of the nutrients when you cook them in the lowest amount of water possible. So that's why steamers and steaming will actually give you a more preserved nutritional value out of a carrot. So that's another fact for you. And I'm trying to think, did I hit all my tips? Oh, #1 producer of carrots. There's states in the US that are major producers. We do grow them in Hawaii. Obviously, Go Farm Hawaii created the ones or grew the ones that you took home. But they're not the main producer of carrots. So the #1 state is California. They grow the most carrots for production for the US. Texas is next, followed by Washington, Michigan, Florida, Colorado, and Wisconsin. So they're grown more in the colder environments. So most of your carrots are cold nature weather time of the year. So that's why they're better in the cooler climates. So they actually get a little better products in the cooler climates. But that's why you still can get them here in Hawaii. Hawaii almost can grow them all year round, which in a cooler climate, you can't always do that. So if it freezes, so you do have some options to get them locally here fresh, but otherwise they're shipped in your 5-pound bag, 1-pound bag, or our famous baby carrots. So you have a variety to pick from. Okay. Anything else? All right. thanks for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you in the lab, in the kitchen. And we look forward to the next opportunity. If anybody has any questions outside of this, feel free to email us and we'll get back to you in questions. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great, happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your couple of days off. And we'll catch you on the next CTAHR adventure. Thanks. Bye.